There's a video going around right now telling you July is secretly the best month to plant your fall garden. Beans, cucumbers, zucchini, carrots, kale, broccoli, cabbage, beets, Brussels sprouts, lettuce, radishes, Swiss chard, 12 crops, all planted in July for a big autumn payoff. Here's what that video isn't telling you. Half of those vegetables can absolutely wreck your July garden if you're in the wrong part of the country, and thousands of people are about to plant them at exactly the wrong moment for their exact zone, and wonder in 6 weeks why they've got nothing but bolted, bitter, woody, rotted out beds instead of a fall harvest. The video isn't wrong. The science is real. Cold weather really does make carrots sweeter and kale milder. But that video was filmed for one climate, and it's being watched in 50 states with completely different July heat, completely different first frost dates, and completely different growing windows. A gardener in Minnesota planting broccoli seeds outdoors in mid-July is right on schedule. A gardener in Texas or Georgia doing the exact same thing that same week is planting straight into weeks of brutal heat that will stunt the plant before it ever gets close to the cool fall weather it actually needs. It's not that these vegetables are wrong to plant in the second half of summer. It's that most people are planting them on the wrong side of their own zone's calendar. And that single mismatch is why so many gardeners end up disappointed by crops that, planted at the right time, would have worked beautifully. Before we go further, drop your US state or your USDA hardiness zone in the comments right now. Seriously, pause and do it. What works in Zone 9 Florida in late July can be a complete disaster in Zone 4 Minnesota, and what's perfect timing in Zone 5 can be too late to matter in Zone 10. I can't tell you exactly when to plant without knowing where you're growing, and neither can any one-size-fits-all video, including the one you might have already watched. Now, here's something I need to be honest with you about. I put together videos like this every single week, digging through actual planting science instead of what simply gets views, specifically so gardeners in every zone stop guessing and start planting at the right time for where they actually live. But I can only keep making zone-specific content like this if I know who's actually watching and where you're gardening from. If you scroll past this without commenting your zone or state, you're one of hundreds of people I'll never be able to help with the right timing, and next season you'll be right back here, still guessing, still losing a bed to the wrong month. Comment your zone, hit subscribe, and I'll make sure the timing advice in every future video actually applies to where you live instead of some average that fits nobody perfectly. Here's the idea that explains every vegetable on this list, and it's simpler than you'd think. Every one of these crops falls into one of two failure patterns when planted in the wrong window. Some of them bolt. The plant senses long, hot days as a signal that its life is ending soon. So it rushes to flower and produce seed before it dies, and the leaves or roots turn bitter, tough, or woody in the process. That's a heat-triggered survival response, not bad luck. Others simply can't germinate or establish in hot soil at all. Their seeds are built to sprout in cool, moist conditions, and when the top few inches of soil are baking in July sun, the seed either sits dormant, rots, or sprouts into a weak seedling that heat stress kills within days. Some crops do both, depending on your zone. And that's exactly where the confusion with the plant these in July video comes from. The vegetables that video recommends aren't fake advice. They're crops that need to finish in cool fall weather, which means the sowing window has to land far enough before your first frost, but far enough after your worst heat, that the plant never has to survive either extreme unprotected. Get that window right for your zone, and the crop thrives. Miss it, and you get exactly the failure your Google search warned you about. Let us start with the Tier 1. These ones are the classic overlap crops. 1 and 2, broccoli and cauliflower. These two behave almost identically, and they're the clearest example of the whole zone problem. Broccoli and cauliflower are cool season crops through and through. Direct sow the seed into soil that's still sitting in July heat. And in most zones south of the upper Midwest, you'll get exactly what people report online. Stunted plants, heat rot at the base, and heads that either never form or come in loose, ricey, and bitter instead of tight and sweet. The fix isn't skipping these crops. It's starting them as transplants indoors or in a shaded tray during the hottest weeks, then moving seedlings outside once your local daytime highs start easing. Time so the plant hits its heading stage during cool weather, not hot. count backward roughly 10 to 12 weeks from your average first frost date. In Zone 9 or 10, that might genuinely mean a July or early August start. In Zone 5 or 6, starting outdoors in mid-July is planting straight into a heat wave the seedling has no chance of surviving, and late July to mid-August transplants are the safer call. 3. Cabbage. Same family, same core problem. Direct sown in the dead heat of July almost anywhere outside the coolest zones. Cabbage seedlings become an easy target for pests and rot before they've built any real root system. The plants that succeed are the ones started as transplants and moved into the garden once heat starts to break. Time to form heads during the cool weeks of early fall rather than fighting through peak summer first. 4. Brussels sprouts. This is the crop with the least room for error on this entire list, because it needs 80 to 100 days to fully develop, and it absolutely will not forgive a late start. Plant too early into brutal July heat in a warm zone, and pest pressure alone can wipe out the crop before it gets anywhere near forming sprouts. Plant too late in a cold zone, and frost arrives before the sprouts ever fill in, leaving you with a tall, leafy stalk and nothing worth harvesting. This is the single vegetable on the list where knowing your exact zone and countback date matters more than almost anything else you'll plant this year. Number 5, 6, and 7. Carrots, beets, and turnips. All three are root crops that share the same summer weakness. Grown through peak heat, the roots turn woody, fibrous, and unpleasantly sharp or bitter instead of the sweet, crisp texture they're known for. This isn't the plant failing to grow. It's the plant growing under stress and putting its energy into surviving the heat instead of building tender, sugar-rich roots. The punchline here, and this is worth remembering for your whole garden, not just root vegetables. If your zone's heat hasn't broken yet, these three are worth holding off on for a few more weeks rather than direct sowing right now. But radishes are the one fast, forgiving root crop you can usually still get away with sowing in cooler pockets of your garden right now, since some varieties are ready in as little as 25 days, giving you something in the ground while you wait out the heat for the slower root crops. Now let us move to the Tier 2. These are the flat nose, regardless of zone. Continuing with 8 and 9. Lettuce and spinach. These two are the most zone-independent failures on the list. Both are strict cool season leafy greens, and both will bolt hard the moment they hit sustained heat, turning bitter and tough within days. Spinach is even less forgiving than lettuce, since its seeds frequently just won't germinate at all in hot summer soil, leaving you with bare patches instead of a bolted crop to at least salvage. If you genuinely want greens in the garden through the hottest stretch of the year, the punchline swap here is heat-tolerant lettuce varieties like Butter Crunch or Solanova, grown under 50 to 70% shade cloth or tucked into the shadow of taller plants. That's a real workaround. Direct sowing standard lettuce or any spinach into open July sun almost never is. 10. Peas. English peas and snap peas shut down blossom production the moment sustained heat sets in, and the vines will wither rather than push through it. There's no real trick around this one in peak summer. The honest move is treating peas as a spring and true fall crop only, timed for cool weather on both ends, and using the summer gap for something the heat actually favors, like southern peas or okra, which are built for exactly the conditions that kill English peas. 11. Kale. Kale earns a place on both lists for a reason, and it's worth untangling. As a fall crop timed to finish after frost, kale is genuinely excellent, sweeter and milder the colder it gets. But direct sown into raw July heat, especially in warmer zones, the leaves toughen up and the plant becomes a magnet for cabbage worms and other summer pests before it ever gets close to the cool weather that would improve it. The window matters enormously here. Too early into heat, and you're fighting pests and toughness for weeks before any payoff. Timed correctly for your zone's first frost, it's one of the most rewarding fall greens you can grow. 12. Radishes, Revisited, and the timing trap. Radishes make both lists too, and for good reason. Spring varieties sown into peak summer heat bolt and turn woody almost as fast as lettuce does. But this is also the crop with the fastest recovery option on the entire list. Wait out the worst 2 or 3 weeks of heat, then sow again, or shift to winter radish varieties like daikon once late August arrives, and you're back in business within weeks rather than waiting for an entire season to turn over. If you've made it this far and you're growing any of these 12 right now without knowing exactly where your zone's heat breaks or your first frost lands, you're not gambling with a bad seed packet. You're gambling with your own timing information, and that's the one thing I can actually help you fix. I know putting your state or zone in a YouTube comment feels small, but here's the honest truth. The gardeners who tell me their zone are the ones I can actually tailor future videos for, down to the exact week that matters for their region. The ones who scroll past without commenting are the ones I lose track of, and 6 months from now, when I'm making a video on exactly when to start your fall broccoli, it won't reach you the way it should, because the algorithm doesn't know you're here, and honestly, neither do I. Comment your zone, hit subscribe, and like this video if it saved you from planting even one of these crops at the wrong time. It cost you 10 seconds. It costs me the ability to keep making content that's actually useful to your specific garden if you don't. None of these 12 vegetables are bad crops. Every one of them can still give you a strong fall harvest. The only thing standing between you and a good outcome is knowing whether you're on the early side or the late side of your own zone's window. And that's the one piece of information a national video filmed for an average climate can never give you. Drop your state or zone below. Tell me which of these 12 you already have in the ground right now, and I'll help you figure out if you're right on time or if it's worth holding off a few more weeks. That's what this channel is actually here for, not one-size-fits-all advice, but the right timing for the garden you're actually standing in front of.